As many of you know, we planned for last week's Shabbat Yom HaAtzmaut service to be outside in the garden. And all week we anxiously watched the forecast, especially Rabbi Lewis watched the forecast. We looked up in the sky, we consulted the experts, and as you know, the heavens opened, drenching the ground, flooding the streets, giving us no choice but to move the service and the celebration indoors. Disappointment ran high here last Friday when our plans that we'd planted a year in advance did not come to harvest as expected. But still, we were grateful. We were grateful that we were safe and we were dry and we were together here celebrating Shabbat and Israel's 77th birthday. Now, reflecting on last week, and this one as well, that had us focused on the delicate balance of sun and rain that might have allowed us to be outdoors for Shabbat services tonight, also not possible, I realized that we were the modern manifestations of our biblical ancestors during these 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, the season of counting the Omer. That once the Israelites settled in the land of Israel and embraced agricultural lives of growing wheat and barley, this season was the most precipitous time of the year. Listen to how Rabbi Arthur Waskow writes about the season. Barley is the quickest ripening grain and the most fertile. And so it was the quintessence of the fruitfulness of the land, which is why that was the offering during the Omer period. The barley harvest came to ripeness early in the spring, during or just after Pesach. And late in the spring, 50 days later, the wheat crop was ready. Counting the Omer as commanded in the Torah became a way of acting out the anxiety that pervaded the grain-growing season, and a way of reenacting the emotionally challenging march from Egypt to Mount Sinai. For the Israelite farmer, emotions ran especially high during these 7 weeks. There was joy at the first sprouts and worry that too much rain would mold the roots. There was fear that the sun would scorch the leaves and relief when insects didn't swarm the fields, anxiety that they wouldn't have enough barley to bring the sacred holy offering, gratitude to God for the blessings of life and sustenance. And all of these emotions rising and falling over and over again every day for 49 days. What an intense time it was at this exact time of year, thousands of years ago. And the same is true, isn't it, in our lives? Not only as a congregation trying to celebrate Shabbat outdoors in the Texas spring, but in each of our lives. These are the emotions the students in our recent mental and spiritual well-being workshop described and named as the challenges and blessings of their lives. They are the ever-shifting emotions that we all face all the time. The 16th century Kabbalists, who were not farmers, also experienced the shifting nature of emotion. They taught that the rises and the falls were built into the very structure of the 7-week period, from our first step out of slavery until the last step of arrival at the base of Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. Rabbi Sam Feinsmith teaches, Rabbi Isaac Luria understands the entire period of counting the Omer as a period of spiritual formation or development for the Israelites. This developmental arc is characterized by days of augmented or expanded consciousness, interspersed with days of diminished or contracted consciousness. with the net effect being that of growing toward spiritual purity and perfection and the attainment of higher wisdom through Torah. The rabbis notice, especially the Kabbalistic rabbis, notice, as many of us have, that the Israelites leave Egypt in haste and in fear, and then they sing with triumphant joy at the shore of the sea, and then they immediately despair that they won't have enough food to eat or water to drink, and they beg to return to freedom, and then they hope, but they hope that a golden calf will answer their prayers. And then they learn about love for each other, and love for God. And they experience the power of healing, and then the power of forgiveness. And finally, with all these emotions raging in their hearts like adolescents, they arrive at Mount Sinai 50 days later. In a complex calendrical matrix that I will not try to explain right now from the Bima, the Maggid of Koznitz teaches that on the second day of the Omer, which he calculates as being the third day out of Egypt, the people had great, tremendous, strong faith in God, and they were filled with faith and trust and hope. However, by the sixth day after the Exodus, the fifth day of the Omer, fear filled their hearts that the Egyptians were in pursuit of them. And it was only the next day, the seventh day of the Omer, 8 days out of Egypt, that they embodied the words of the psalmist. Yehudah became God's Am Kadosh, God's holy people. From these ancient Israelites and from this Kabbalistic teaching, we learned that the season is one where our emotions rise and fall. Sometimes we are strong and expanded, and sometimes we are weak and contracted. And this is natural, and it's eternal. And it's part of who we are as individuals, each and every one of us. And it's part of who we are as a Jewish people. And rather than fight against it, our tradition suggests embracing this annual opportunity to see it, if you will, as a sort of mental health checkup, like going to the dentist or the doctor each year. It's a time to pay attention to our emotions, to learn from our feelings, and to speak about them honestly with each other. It comes as no surprise that Jewish Mental Health Awareness Month also falls in this season of emotional cycles. The monthly designation, as you know, is not meant to limit our attention to our spiritual and emotional health to the month of May, but it is an opportunity, in keeping with our tradition, to be more attentive to the work we need to do all year long. As a congregation, we are so grateful to our partners in this sacred work, especially Jewish Family Service, who celebrated their 90th anniversary of caring for the hearts and minds of the Dallas Jewish community just this week. And we're grateful to the Blue Dove Foundation, whose materials are available through our website and which we use throughout the year. Our Shine the Light Committee, led by Nancy Shanks and Lisa Solomon, with their advisory team of professionals, helped to identify emerging issues for us in partnership with our Director of Pastoral Support, Meredith Prizant. And together with the clergy, we are always available to talk with all of you about the full range of the emotional issues that we all face as we weather the storms of our lives. The 20th century leaders of the State of Israel understood this seasonal emotional flow as well. And they established modern holidays to mark our historical experiences. When they did so, they nested Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaAtzmaut within the Omer season. They didn't place them in the fall. They didn't place them in the winter. They placed them right here, right now. And they flow one into the other, just before the center day of the counting of the Omer, which was yesterday. And that lets us experience the darkness and then the light, to help us know and affirm that from grief and loss, life and hope and maybe even peace will prevail as we make our way through the unpredictable emotional cycles over and over again. Rabbi Hannah Yerushalmi, a colleague of ours, recently wrote this poem for the season. She wrote it about Israel, capturing in verse the teaching of our tradition through the generations. But I think it applies not only to the state of Israel, but to any geographic location. It's called Here, Every Day. Here, every day is an aching Memorial Day, and every day is a glorious Independence Day. Here, grief pulls at every thought, but pride lifts us high to where light begins. Here, hearts crack wide open and also heal with time again and again. Here, fragile wings are broken and roots dive deep between the rivers. Here, tears and memory define us, but infinite hope erases all the limits. Here, we count the losses by the hundreds of thousands and number every single victory with each tender newborn cry. For this people and this land, here, the air reminds us that every day is a Memorial Day and every day is an Independence Day. These weeks of counting the Omer help us understand at this season and always that every day is a Memorial Day and every day is an Independence Day. Community and faith, patience and compassion, forgiveness and love help us make our way. Prayer and ritual can't bring the rain or stop the rain, but they can steady our steps as we make our way with all our emotions, counting each day. We're going to count together now this day, so we invite you to join us in counting the Omer on this 27th day, which is 3 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. Please rise.
Hineni mukhan u'mezuman lakayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu hasfirat ha'omer hayom 27 yom shehem 3 shavuot ו6 yamim ha'omer.
Today is the 27th day, which is 3 weeks and 6 days of the Omer.